Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this Link Hire live webinar with Paul Hughes. Paul is going to talk to us about dealing with challenges and being resilient and not making excuses. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Paul, and take it away.
Right, thank you very much, John. Right, hello, everyone. I'm Paul Hughes. I'm a 52-year-old Welshman. Okay, I know I look like an extra from Game of Thrones at the moment, and I've got this ginger beard going on, and I'm actually working today for one of my offices in Retford in Nottinghamshire. But I am an honorary yellow belly. I've been living in Lincoln now for many a year. I'm ex-military. I was Royal Air Force aircrew, which I spent 23 years in the Royal Air Force and doing sort of special operations within the UK military. And I left the Royal Air Force in 2012, and for the last, crikey, we'll get out now, 9 years, I have been a civilian. And I set my own limited company up, the first of my limited companies, in 2012 as I was leaving the military. And to cut a long story short, I now have 3 companies, and I'm also the chief of special projects for a drone defense company based in Retford, but go around the world. So the equipment for the drone defense side of things is on every continent apart from Antarctica. My other companies are a forensic research company, which is based in Lincoln, just off Steep Hill. And I've also a producer, director in a production company that do TV shows, also going into the film world as well. So that's quite exciting, happening in the next year also. So I work with the best-selling author Damien Lewis, who's very famous for the military genre, books on military history. And working with Damien has sort of then seen me branch into sort of working with other TV production companies like Shine Endemol, Channel 4. And this year, I'm actually going in front of the camera instead of behind the camera, and I'm going to be the new deputy on a show called Hunted on Channel 4. So all very good, all very different. And of course, I'm doing these talks, and these talks, I've been doing talks now, motivational talks, inspirational talks. Ultimately, I'm just telling stories about my life, my successes, and also my failings, and where I've been, what I've done, and how I've got to where I am today, sort of owning several companies, working as chief of special projects. And the talks that I've done are sort of gone from strength to strength. And I now do talks to Premiership football teams, to rugby stars, rugby players, elite rugby teams, including national squads. So it's gone on great. It's great, and it's just, and the success from that helps my own businesses. It helps the businesses I'm involved with, and it helps you guys too, because ultimately, when I was in school, primary school, brilliant. Loved primary school. You can be so creative in primary school. You can, people ask you when you're little what you want to be, and you can come up with everything. You can just dream big. And from my perspective, I wanted to be an astronaut. So I wanted to, I was fascinated by everything stellar, by sort of space travel, rockets, anything sort of sci-fi related and to do with space. That was me. I was really, really blown away by that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, in secondary school, things start to change because you hit this thing called puberty, okay? And puberty wasn't very kind to me, all right? Now, I'm 6'4" now, with size 12 feet. At the age of 11, I was 6'2" with size 11 feet. Now, that's not right, is it really? Well, there's no defined normal in life. But to be 6'2" with size 11 feet at the age of 11, you're like, thank you, God. Why me? Because you tend to stand out like a sore thumb. All my friends looked like Oompa Loompas around me. I felt like I was Gulliver in Gulliver's Travel with sort of loads of little people around me. And it took me a while. Like, I know, granted, at my age now, I fill out my body okay. But I was a beanpole at the age of 11. And also, not only the height and the big feet, my feet, size 11, I looked like Pingu. I could lean at 45 degrees into the wind and not fall over. They were like Ronald McDonald clown feet. And I was quite clumsy with it as well. But in addition to that sort of physical size, I also had the worst zits imaginable. Yes, zits, acne. The proper Latin term for the condition I had was acne vulgaris, vulgaris being vulgar, repulsive, gopping in street cred terms, okay, in street speak. But I had 45 zits just on my chin alone, let alone the rest of my pizza face that was going on. So you can imagine, right, in secondary school, my self-confidence and my self-esteem was rock bottom. Primary school was brilliant, inventive, creative. You could be. I set the school chess club up for rainy days. So if it was piddling down outside, we'd set up the chess boards up in the hall and have mini tournaments. I'd organize that. And I got the school to buy more chess boards and chess clocks and all sorts of things. And it was really, really good. And I even got into the Welsh under-18 chess championships at the age of 10. So I was really, really enjoying that. I also set up the school newspaper. So if I finished lessons quickly, I would then go on to doing the school newspaper. Bearing in mind, this was pre-internet days, and you'd have to color in the newspapers and do your graphics in sort of felt tip pen and then have it photocopied. And the photocopy wouldn't be in color anyway, because we had monochrome photocopiers, the old Xerox machines back in the 1970s, we're talking now. So it was, but it was something that the teachers realized that obviously I was clever and I learned to read and write at a young age, never had any difficulties with sort of any lessons in primary school. So in infant school, junior school, no problems. And of course, finishing your lessons quickly and you just say, Miss, sir, can I get on with the newspaper? They go, yeah, of course you can. Today, this is called differentiation or variation, whereas the teachers plan lessons in lessons. So you do loads of different lessons and people learn in different ways. So if I finish my work, instead of me then being bored or the teacher having to find more work, they then just say, yeah, crack on with your project, Paul, which is doing the school newspaper or doing stuff for the chess club. So I would keep myself busy and entertained. Secondary school, all that fell apart really, because your first day I had to commute then and catch a school bus to go to my school. And I'm from South Wales. I'm from the Rhondda Valley. So it's an industrial heartland, really. It's a little bit like sort of Scunthorpe, or sort of Sheffield as well, really, sort of industrial heartland. So it was a lot of coal mining going around and lots of pits around where I was brought up. Also steel and iron works as well. So lots of smokestacks. It was just an industrial, birthplace really for the industrial, for the iron and steel industry, and obviously the coal industry. So it was, I wouldn't say it was the most picturesque part of the world that I grew up in, but it was, the scenery around it, and the Brecon Beacon Mountains and things like that, which are absolutely amazing. But where I was in the main industrial bit. So growing up, all I had around me, well, my family were working with the coal board or working in the industry in some shape or way or form. And I really didn't want to go into that. I used to watch TV programs and want to travel and go around the world and visit, every corner of the sort of our wonderful globe. And metaphorically speaking, because it's a globe, there are no corners, obviously. But I just wanted to travel and I wanted to get out there, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then in secondary school, confidence levels dropping because of the way I looked, because of my zits. And then on top of that, I started to have a stammer as well. So that's all confidence related also, okay? So I was keeping myself to myself then. I went really shy and retiring. I went into myself. It wasn't cool to be clever in the comprehensive school I was at. If you put your hand up and answered questions, then the bullying sort of collective would set upon you. And I was already standing out like a sore thumb. So I just wanted to blend in and just to get through each day. And I lived for the weekend and doing stuff with my friends, because not all my friends went to my school. Where I grew up, you had a choice of going to a Welsh-speaking school or an English-speaking school, or Catholic school as well. And I went to an English-speaking comprehensive school. And some of my friends went to Welsh school, some went to Catholic school. So we all sort of met up on an evening, or mainly on weekends, and sort of played around, played sport and all that type of stuff. But during school days, I didn't like it. And I just sort of blended in, kept myself out of trouble, and sort of kept my head down. And it just wasn't cool to be clever, which in primary school, you could be what you wanted to be, and you could really, really, really go for it and think big and be creative. Whereas all of a sudden, I felt myself going in and sort of regressing into myself. And what we had then is that the equivalent of the GCSEs that I took, I did the old O-level system called GCE. And GCSEs came in the year after I sat my O-levels. Now, I sat my O-levels in 1985. And to cut a long story short, I did okay. I got 5 O-levels at grade C or above. So, but I could have done so much better. But those qualifications that I got at O-level were in the lessons where the teachers had discipline and had the relevance. They taught you the relevance of why you were learning that particular subject, or the objectives within a certain subject, and why it was key to sort of knuckle down and do well at this. And because they controlled the discipline, the bullying aspect within the class sort of calmed down to a manageable sort of level, and people were able to learn. But I didn't really do a great deal of study. Now, I don't advocate nobody studying now, and you guys, if you're 13 watching this now, you pass the GCSE and you're coming up to the A-level sort of time of your life, which is imminent. And what I found is my GCE, the GCSE equivalent side of things, I got 5, and I got grade C and above in 5 of them, and I hadn't put much effort in. Now, that taught me that I had more to give, and I felt quite sorry for myself there. I thought, for goodness, why didn't I push myself harder? Because I saw some of my peers who had been in junior school with me, who I considered to be just as smart, getting really good grades. And I thought, why is this? Oh, crikey. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I stayed on in that same school that I absolutely loathed to do A-levels. Whereas in reality, I was accepted to go to technical college. I was also accepted to do an apprenticeship with a large building firm. And I had these other options available to me, but because my confidence level was so low and I was in a routine, and that's what I ended up doing. I just stayed on to do A-levels that I really, really didn't apply myself at. I didn't know how to apply myself. I didn't know how to up my game. The teachers didn't really report back to my mum and dad. They didn't report back to me any sort of feedback about how I should be doing better. Nowadays, you have, as soon as your grades drop, and for you in year 12 or year 13 watching this right now, you'll know this. Your grades are dropping and your assessments or your homework. You probably have emails home or text message home, letters home to mum and dad. And it's straight away, it's like, what's going on here? And they're on you. And teaching has really, really improved over the past decades. And it really, really is top notch now from what I went through. But the bottom line from where I'm coming from now is that I wasted 2 years doing A-levels because I didn't apply myself. I didn't up my game because I found my O-level, the GCSE equivalent, quite straightforward. I thought, yeah, I could probably do my A-levels. I'll just keep on going. I'll just knuckle down a little bit and just go for it. But the subjects I did required a great deal of reading. So one of them being history. So you have extra textbooks to read through, make additional notes. And I got the history and I liked history. And I got a real good grade in history for my O-level for the GCE. But for the A-level, the additional reading proved to be quite difficult. And when I was reading books, textbooks, the words used to just wiggle around on the page. And I thought I was just, I didn't realize at the time a condition that I have. And I didn't realize that I had dyslexia until I was well into my 20s. And I was already in the military and already up several ranks and doing very, very well. So I'll come on to that bit in a minute. But yeah, I'm dyslexic. So if I was in school today, for some lessons, you might find that I'd have a TA alongside me or give me additional notes or handouts to help me through the given lesson for certain aspects of it. Now, I also find it really difficult sitting still. And I've had to overcome this considerably during the lockdown period, doing virtual talks like this, because I have to sit still. If you see me at a live event, and hopefully in the next few months when lockdown sort of subsides and I get physically into schools and colleges and universities again and talking to sort of students and teachers and parents and governors about my life and how to go about doing things and mindset, etc., etc., I really prowl around on stage. I jump in amongst the audience and I'm very animated. You can probably see sort of my hands are up here now and I'm sort of doing the jazz hands routine. But from that perspective, I found it really hard focusing and just sitting still. Now in school, I found difficult as well if things were going on around me. So if there were idiots messing around to the side of me, if there's things happening outside, my attention would be diverted. And if a teacher was quite monotone or had a boring lesson, I would switch off quite quickly. Because I also got another SEN ticket, so to speak, in addition to the dyslexia. I've got a condition called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and you probably know it as ADHD. So I would probably be a bit of a hand grenade, really, in school nowadays. And to a certain extent, having grown to such a great size so young, having the acne and going sort of into myself instead of being extrovert, actually taught me some lessons. I wouldn't advocate going through school, keeping your head down, keeping your hand down, don't ask any questions, and sort of being underconfident as being a positive. But I've got a positive from being that. And what I have from that and from failing my A levels, because I stayed on and I failed all 3 of my A levels that I was sitting. I didn't grade. I had 2 N grades, which they had then, which are like a near miss. And then I had 1 U grade, which is unclassified, which basically shows that I hadn't applied myself at all. On the history side of things, I got the N grade. I understood the history aspect of it because I hadn't done the further reading in depth of the other textbooks because it was just too much like hard work. I didn't realize I was dyslexic. And at that time, of course, there were no Kindles. There was no sort of e-reader type thing that you can change the background color, alter the font or the vertical separation to make the reading more dyslexic friendly, should I say. So I really, really struggled, but nobody identified that in the school. Now, nowadays in school, teachers are quite quick to identify. They know when someone is starting to struggle in a secondary school environment or at an A-level environment, when you start to sort of, oh, hang on, you did okay at GCSE in whatever subject, and you're doing it for A-level and you start to dip. It's normally just the way you apply things, because there's a lot more at A-level about your train of thought, and you have to articulate that and get that down on paper, so to speak. So you have to have your thoughts. There's no right or wrong answer in some of the subjects as well. You just have to put your point down and get your point across. And the hardest thing about that is starting. So, and I write reports now on a daily basis. I write forensic reports that go to court in the court system in the UK. I go to the Home Office. So the likes of the Home Secretary, even the Prime Minister read the reports that I generate. The Civil Aviation Authority get the reports as well as other customers all around the world. So I'm very, very good at report writing nowadays. If I had these skills when I was doing my A-levels, I would have done fine and dandy. But I didn't believe in myself because my secondary school period was a downer for me. I didn't believe in myself. The confidence levels were there. I didn't excel. But all of a sudden, if you look at where I'm at now, yeah, I run several companies, but I've also got several master's degrees at distinction level. So it's the highest grade you can possibly get for a postgraduate degree. I've got 4 master's degrees, okay? All of my qualifications since failing my A-levels have been at distinction level. So I've got a master's in forensics. I got a master's in electronic warfare and intelligence systems and cognitive science, as well as having an MBA, a master's degree in business administration. Oh yeah, I forgot to say as well, I'm also fluent in Arabic. I speak Russian, and I also speak one of the languages in Afghanistan, which is Pashto. Now, all those qualifications came from my time in the military. So the 23 years that I had in the military, I put to good use. And the branch in the military that I went into was within the intelligence sphere. So collecting information on our enemies or potential threats and collating it, analyzing it. But the intelligence sphere also recruit heavily with people with languages or people who can be taught languages. And I found that I had a very good language brain, even though when I joined the Royal Air Force, I just had a CSE grade 2 in French. Now, a CSE was the lesser of the qualifications you would get. Before the GCSE system came in, you had GCE, which was the O level, and the lesser qualification was called the CSE. If you had a CSE grade 1, you had the equivalent of a C grade at O level. Okay, so a CSE grade 1 equivalent to an O level, or to a GCSE at grade C. If you had a grade 2, that was like a D now for a GCSE. So I had a grade D in French. Now, I enjoyed learning languages, but I didn't really apply myself. I didn't know how to learn a language. And like I said, everybody learns in different ways. But what I've found since learning languages is that I've suddenly learned how to learn every other subject under the sun. And I've realized that with my dyslexia, and if you treat everybody as a dyslexic, then you'll find that your learning methodology improves massively, because I've learned how the brain works. I've got a master's in cognitive science, okay? So I understand how this marvelous hard drive that we have inside of our head works. Now, when you learn a language, your brain tries to trick you straight away. Or when you try and learn anything new, your brain will go, what's the relevance? What's the point? And it will always try and cram it into your short-term memory first. It's a Snapchat part of your brain. It's there for a fleeting moment. It's there really for learning things like a shopping list. Or if you go into the tuck shop or whatever, or a corner shop, and you're getting a list for your mum and dad, for yourself, or your family, whatever. So you go in there, you're going, right, I'm going to the tuck shop. I'm going to get a packet of Pringles. I'm going to get a Mars bar duo. I'm going to get myself a Red Bull drink and a Cadbury's flake. So you got these things whittling through your head now, and you get down to the shop, you go through your order, you pick it all up, and you bring it back home. When you're learning a language, what I found is that when I joined the military, and the first language I learned in the military was Russian. The Cold War was still going on at that time. Russia was perceived to be the major enemy should we go to war. And from my perspective, the language lessons were great, and they were very sort of well done, and we had native speakers that were teaching us, and it was great, and I could mimic their voices, and I could get the accent right, and I could speak it. I was learning to speak it, but getting the vocabulary into my head, which are the building blocks of everything regarding a language, I had real difficulty. And we had these workbooks we'd go through, and they have vocab sheets within them, and I would be sat in our barrack room on an evening, and I was sharing that. So there was 10 of us in total in this barrack room. So we had 10 beds, and you'd have a wardrobe, chest of drawers, and a little desk. And we had that in our large room. And some of the guys that I was with in that room were amazing at languages. And they didn't really do a great deal of study at night. They just soaked it up in the lessons. And I couldn't do that, because I joined the Royal Air Force when I was 20. And some of these people had joined straight from secondary school, or straight from college, or from university. So they haven't had a gap in their education. And they've come in from being really keen in secondary school all the way through to doing good GCE or GCSE results, good A-level results, and into the military. So their brain was in learn mode all the way. Whereas for me, I really didn't excel in secondary school at all. I really didn't push myself. And obviously I failed my A-levels. And then when I left school, I had 2 years then working in Cardiff, in the capital city of Wales. And I was working for a clothing retailer called Topman. You've seen Topman, same as the bloke's equivalent of Topshop, okay? So I was selling suits there, and I enjoyed my time in retail, and it was great. And I learned sort of how to sell, how to engage with the public, communication skills really. And I learned a lot about fashion as well then, and sort of and how to dress to impress. So for job interviews and things like that. So it was a good time, but I wanted more. I really wanted more. But if you put that time together, I really hadn't engaged my brain and really pushed myself since primary school, which is really, really key. Because our brain, if I opened up my head right now, not a pretty sight, I know. It's a Friday morning, I shouldn't be going graphic like this, but if I opened up my skull right now, your brain looks like a big grey walnut when you drain the blood from it. Sorry, a bit gory, isn't it? I know, I'm sorry about that. But this big grey walnut has huge potential. But this grey walnut is just grey matter. You've heard the phrase grey matter. That's where it comes from. Your brain is just grey matter. That's the big hard drive. But what your brain needs, and we all live and we all learn in different ways. And we all like and dislike different things. I've got 4 kids. They've all been brought up in the same loving household, but they all like different things. If you've got brothers and sisters now, you probably realize that, yeah, you don't get on with some things and some things you do. So you're not all like, we're all not clones of each other. But your grey matter, we're all different because the communication system between the different spheres of the brain, okay, between the different parts of the brain that do different things and form our personality, we have super fast broadband going between them. This super fast broadband linking our different parts of our brain is called white matter. The process is called myelination, but I'm not going to hold it and ask you questions on what you properly call it. Just remember, grey matter, white matter. White matter is the communication system between the different parts of the brain. Now, here's the cool thing, right? White matter is 100 times quicker at sending information around the brain than just reliant on the grey matter doing it. I'll say that again. White matter is 100 times quicker than grey matter at passing information and just sending the messages around the brain, so it makes you think quicker, act quicker, just you're reacting so much quicker, you get things quickly. And what I've found in secondary school, especially at my A levels, with some of my peers, who I found I was just as clever as them in primary school, and to a certain extent through secondary school as well, even though I really wasn't putting my hand up, answering questions and pushing myself, I thought I was on par with them. But when it came to A levels then, I was like, wow, how did he get that? How did he get that? And I didn't get that. And then your confidence levels drop even further. So going on to my Russian course, I was there in a Russian course, we had small class sizes. So the class sizes in the military for language learning, you're about 10, 12 of you maximum in a class. And you have native speakers, and then those classes split down to even smaller to what we call IOP, individual oral practices, when you're talking in smaller groups of maybe 2 or 3 of you with an instructor. So your spoken word really, really gets going and you get involved all the time. And what I found on my Russian was that I could speak it and I could get it that way, but I couldn't get these building blocks in. I was going through these workbooks and getting the vocabulary into my head. I would be sat on my bed at night in my dormitory in the barrack room. All the other guys may be watching telly, listening to music. And of course, I've got ADHD, but I didn't realize I had ADHD. So I'm sat on my bed with all these distractions going on around me, and I'm trying to focus on this vocabulary. And I'm covering one side of the vocab sheet and I'm going down the one side of it. So I'm covering it one hand, going down, and I'm looking and looking and looking. And it would take me hours to get the words into my head. And then I think I've got to bed going, yeah, I've got that. I've got the vocab in my head. And then the following morning, I'd have my breakfast and I'd come back, quickly read over the vocab again. And I go, yeah, I think I've got it. I've got those words in my head. And then we go into lessons and the teacher would then not say those words in the list form that they were on in the book. So they would be random. And that would blow me apart. And I'd be going, oh, I know it. And then he or she would go on to the next word and I'd be going, ah. And then you get a little bit of anxiety kicking in. And then you get your results back. And I'd have like 30 or 40% correct. And it was heartbreaking because I was putting in so much effort. So I sat down with one of my instructors, a guy called Alyosha, who's a Russian guy. And obviously I'm called Paul, and the Russian for Paul is Pavel. So everything was sort of done in a Russian format. And you go, Pavel, you're obviously having a problem. This isn't a meerkat voice, by the way. This is a Russian accent now, honest. Okay, I'm not doing that advert on telly. So it's so Pavel, you're having a problem with your vocabulary. I went, yeah, obviously. I said, I'm trying my best. I'm doing it down. I'm trying to get down these words and I just can't get it in. He goes, one word for you, flashcards. Flashcards. What's flashcards? He went, flashcards. And he said, and he pulled out these little packet of cards, but half the size of a Post-it note. He said, we will make them for you. Blank cards. Blank cards. You write the Russian on one side, the English on the other. Then you need peace and quiet. He said, you get too distracted with people around you. I sound like Dracula now, don't I? Sorry about this. I'll stop my accents now. So he said I was getting distracted. And I thought, right, okay. So what do I do? Where do I go that's quiet at night? I need to get out of my barrack room. So I tried sitting in the laundry room. That was still a bit clangy with pipes and getting a bit hot. So I tried sort of going down the gym, working out, finding a quiet room, squash courts. Of course, people wanted to play sport. So I tried different places, and then I stumbled across the church. And I had a word with our padre who was on the base. And I said, is it okay if I come and study here at night? And he went, be my guest. It's always open. Come on down. So I'd be sat there. I'd have my tea. I'd go to the gym, have a workout, go and get my comfies on and tootle down the church. And I started making up my flashcards. So now I was in peace and quiet. And the method I stumbled across helped me massively. And this is the method I use and still use today to learning any language and any new subject. So bearing in mind that I learn equations from the science bit, from the forensic things that I'm involved with, also from the electronics and the engineering aspect with the drone firm that I'm currently working with and doing things with them. So I'm learning things all the time, but I use flashcards routinely. Now you can do flashcards nowadays. There's different apps you can have for your phones, for your tablets, for your PCs, MacBooks, whatever you have. You can get them. I still prefer the old-fashioned physical touching, holding on to a little bit of card or post-it note, fold it over and make my own flashcards. And what I like as well is I have pets at home. So I have cats and dogs. So I take my dogs for a walk. And if I take my dogs for a walk, I take some flashcards with me. And if I'm walking around the countryside, I'm just going through some bundle of flashcards. But the method I've stumbled across, which helped me massively, is that I just do 5 at a time. 5 flashcards. Because remember I said, when you're going down a list and you're learning new things, you're trying to get new facts and figures in your head, your brain will try and cram it into your Snapchat short-term memory. That's why when you cram for an exam, it doesn't do you any favors, really. It just makes you quite uptight, quite anxious, because you're putting it in the wrong part of your brain. Okay, for starters, it shouldn't be in there. It should be in your long-term memory. So to get things in your long-term memory, 5 flashcards. Do those 5 flashcards. So you do it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, got it. Once you've learned those 5, and you can go over it a few times, you have a few sort of evolutions of going through those particular cards, put them to one side, then get a separate pile of 5 and do them. So when you've learned those 2 piles of 5, shuffle them together. So now you have a random pack of 10. So your brain is looking, so if I'm learning a vocabulary here now, say I'm just looking at the things I got around me now. So I'll say cupboard. Yeah, I got cupboard. The next one I'm expecting is chair, and it's not. And it'll be cup. It could be watch. It could be computer. It could be anything. So it's not in the list that it was down on the original piece of paper or the original flashcards that I was going through. They're now random. So straight away your brain goes, all right, you want it in the long-term part of memory then, yeah? Excellent. Now, some words and whatever you're learning, facts and figures for history, for science, for English lessons, for whatever, some words and some things don't go into your head straight away. And you need to sort of come across some sort of silly rhyme or some trigger mechanism that will make you think of that particular thing. So it hasn't got to be sounding exactly right. So I'll give you an example. The Russian word for good. Okay, the Russian word for good, хорошо. Хорошо. Sounds like horror show, a really scary horror show. Okay, is хорошо. Sounds like horror show. Sorry if I made you jump back in your chairs then, but it has to be done. And there's a reason for this, because when you're learning something, your brain has got a ringleader in its head. The master of your brain is a thing called the hippocampus, right? And the hippocampus is the ringmaster for everything going on. So when you're learning new stuff, it's really key to get your senses involved. It's really key when you're learning things to say things out loud, because you have different cortexes in your brain. Auditory cortex for listening to things. I've just shouted at the screen, okay? So I'm using my speech, which is using a different mechanism in my brain, a different cortex. The auditory cortex, your visual, you're seeing me coming at the screen now, my hands are going and everything else, and I made you jump. All these different parts are making some marvelous semblance of all the nonsense you're seeing in front of you right now. And it's creating a white matter route. It is creating a new path from a different part of your brain to another part of your brain. It's creating a link. It's creating a mesh. So you will never fill this hard drive. You're not going to get a warning saying, yeah, you're full now, start deleting some files. Never happens. You can keep on adding to it all the time. It's just how you link it. And you've got to get these things in by using your senses. So you've got to talk to yourself. So when you're learning things, say things out loud. Don't say it in your head. Say it out loud. If you're sat in your bedroom, you're sat in the study, if you're sat somewhere, say it to yourself. Even just quietly, you're still saying it. You're saying it and you're hearing it. You're registering it. You're filing it. It's like Tetris. All the blocks suddenly fit into place. When you create this white matter and you're learning new things and you're putting different identity tags on it. So what's Russian for good? Yeah. Хорошо. Sounds like horror show, scary horror show. Okay, so you're getting this. This is how you build it up. You will not fill your head. So if you've got facts and figures about sort of dates for history, for algorithms, for sums, for equations, for things like that, or for different rules, everybody knows SOHCAHTOA for your sine and your cosine and your tangents and things in maths. You remember all these different weird and wacky things, but say them out. Say them out. Get them on a flashcard, get them down, go through it, because they're just prompts, because you understand they're the building blocks, but the actual physically building things around it is done by the brain itself with the white matter. It will make sense of everything else that's going on around you. That is where the lessons come alive and you get the concept of things. White matter, which is 100 times quicker than gray matter, is essential. And this is where you got to start pushing yourself. People have a negative. When you go through something bad and you fail at something, like me in secondary school, I had low self-esteem, low confidence levels, didn't believe in myself, all those dreams and ambitions of being an astronaut and doing stuff in space travel, and thought, no, I'm just thick. No, I wasn't thick. I was just a victim, really, but of my own real train of thought. I let people get the better of me. I sort of lived in fear. Now, fear, having worked alongside special forces fraternities, and of course I've done stuff, I work with a production company with Mark Billy Billingham, who's a sergeant major in the SAS, who's on Channel 4's SAS Who Dares Wins, really good pal of mine, and the rest of the guys on that team. And what you find is that everybody feels fear. Everybody experiences fear. Fear is a normal response. Fear gets the release of adrenaline in your body. Adrenaline, yeah, you can make your legs feel a little bit shaky, makes you feel a little bit pumped and a little bit alert, hyper alert, but that's what it's there to do. It's to get you out of danger. You've heard of the fight or flight mechanism from we've had from our caveman days. So if there was sort of a big bear or something chasing a saber-toothed tiger, and we saw it and we couldn't fight it off or use a weapon to sort of hold it off, we had to leg it, climb a tree, run and jump and get out of there quickly. The adrenaline helps you. The adrenaline helps world champions. You think Usain Bolt wouldn't set world records for 100 and 200 meters if he didn't have adrenaline pumping through his body? No, he needs to channel it. Everybody feels it, but it's up to you whether you choose to have fear as a positive thing or a negative thing. Now, fear in the special forces cadre, you're taught that it stands for this, okay? Fear stands for false expectations appearing real. I'll say that again, okay? False expectations appearing real. Fear. Because ultimately, when you fear things and you're really, really worried, you've always got the worst case scenario in your head. And to all intents and purposes, that worst case scenario doesn't really materialize to that extent you're getting worried about, if at all. And certainly in the military, you plan in military operations, you plan for the worst and you have contingencies, but that's good because you train hard, fight easy. So if something does go wrong, you know what to do. You have your standard operating procedures, or we call them SOPs, so just go into straight away instinctively, and you know what to do in that sort of situation. But fear, you've got to push yourself. You've got to get outside your comfort zone. When you're learning something new and you're going a little bit further and applying yourself, this is where the white matter starts to really, really start going. This is what really gets your brain excited. This is what starts creating this mesh even further. If you sit in a routine, if you sit in a comfort zone and you don't push yourself to be the best version of you that you can be, you'll never experience the buzz of becoming something significant. You can all do it, okay? You can all do it. Look at me, okay? I'm from the Rhondda Valley. I'm from a family where nobody went on to do A levels or even go to university. I was the first in my family to attempt A levels. Granted, I failed. But I've subsequently gone on and got 4 master's degrees at distinction level and speak several languages fluently. So I've been described as being a polymath and a polyglot, which is I'm into everything. I'm excited by everything. I'm into everything in the world. I have new hobbies all the time and interests. I like trying things out and doing different things. I'm intrigued by people. I'm intrigued by people who think they're failing. I'm intrigued by people who have had an upset. So in the last week, working with elite athletes and speaking to people who are on the Welsh rugby team, who were going for a grand slam last week. So those of you who are following sport, a close match, and France just beat Wales literally in the dying moments of the game. And so Wales could still win the overall tournament, but they're not going to get this grand slam, which is they beat every team during the tournament. And some of the players are really down as real bad, negative sort of thoughts about it, and blaming themselves and everything else. And ultimately, it's a sport, and it's not life or death. But these things happen, and they're down to small margins. And so when you're looking at these players across the board, so whether they're Welsh, English, Irish, Scottish, French, or the Italian teams, physically, they're all pretty much the same. Okay, they're all extreme athletes, exceptionally fit. They've also got sort of their diet is taken care of. They know when to take their protein shakes and take their vitamins and how much protein and carbohydrate and fat they need to have in every particular meal. Their training is done to the nth degree, so they know exactly, so they're not overtaxing their central nervous system, so they've got plenty of time for recovery for the game. But the game is won and lost. Yeah, there's tactics involved, there's a strategy to be played here, but also there's a self-belief thing going on as well. And the self-belief thing, again, comes down to white matter. And what I've done with the lots of stars, sports stars, over the last few years is I've sat down with them and I've got them to learn other things outside of what their normal forte is. So here's an example. If you go into a rugby academy at a young age as a teenager, and now you're a professional sports star, rugby player in your early 20s, you've pretty much been in that complete tunnel vision of just your sport all the way through your teenage life, all the way into your early sort of 20s now. You've been doing that particular sport. You've not got any peripheral learning going on, which basically means you're just reinforcing the same things. You're not learning anything new. You're not creating any more white matter. Now imagine if you learn more things and you have more white matter going on in your brain, it's obviously going to make you more intelligent, quicker thinking, quicker thought processes, quicker reactions. You get where I'm coming from? So no matter what you're learning, if you're learning something else above and beyond tactics for the rugby field, you're also going to start experiencing and noticing things that you ordinarily hadn't noticed before. Here's the thing, right? If your mum and dad or yourselves now are looking at buying your first car maybe, and you're looking at, say, a new Vauxhall Corsa, all of a sudden you'll start noticing Vauxhall Corsas wherever you go. Or smart cars, you'll start noticing smart cars wherever you go. Or if you've got an ambition to have a funky Mercedes or a sort of a Ford Mustang sort of sports car, and all of a sudden you start noticing wherever you go. Now imagine if you're learning something new, you start to notice things that you're learning about, and you start to see different things happening on the sports field around you. You start learning and noticing things. Even if you're learning something in English and you're reading something different in a book, in a new book, in a magazine, you're watching something different on a TV, somebody describes something in a particular way, you start using a new word. Maybe you're going to start using connective words like moreover and furthermore. I know this sounds a little bit daft, but believe me, it works. You start expanding as a person. You start growing in your mind. Your brain starts noticing things and you start applying things, and things that you learn in bizarre situations, you then apply to the lessons you're doing now for A level that you'll do if you go to college, if you go to university, if you go into apprenticeships, or go straight into the field of work from doing your A levels. It helps you massively. You need to be in learn mode. You need to have new things going on. You need to start pushing yourself. There's no such thing as a stupid question when it comes to learning. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be like me in secondary school and keeping my mouth shut, not putting my hand up and saying, actually, I'm having difficulty here. Or, sir, miss, I really can't get this book in my head. I'm having difficulty I'm finding it hard to read the book, the font, it sort of wiggles. They would have probably known straight away, Angly, you're showing signs of being dyslexic. Imagine what that difference would have mean. So yeah, ultimately I'm successful and I'm running businesses now. I'm doing all right for myself. But I wasted my secondary school years. I wasted my A levels. Imagine what I could have become if I started earlier. Imagine what I could have become if somebody during my secondary school years told me about white matter and how all our brains actually work. These are the tricks of the trade. These are the tricks of success. Why do you just want to exist in life and just accept mediocrity? Why, when you can live? Why wouldn't you want to be the best you can be? I don't understand people who just accept mediocrity. Because I've been there and done it, and I accepted it in secondary school. And then all of a sudden, the penny dropped. The penny dropped when I managed to join the military. And this isn't a recruitment drive for the UK Armed Forces. It can be in any genre, any career path. The penny dropped when I realized I put the effort in, I could learn things. I could learn new things. And all of a sudden, when I started to learn new things, I found that other things became easier too. So the harder I worked on my own knowledge base, the easier life became. So you have to push yourself. And here's the thing, right? You've heard of marathon runners hitting the wall, okay? So you're talking at about 2/3 into a marathon race, which is 26 miles. You physically and mentally hit a wall and you think, my God, your body just feels like it's going to fall apart. Now, I haven't done a marathon because I did an ultra marathon because somebody challenged me when I was living in Cyprus with the military. And one of the army regiment guys that I was over there with said, I'm going to do this ultra marathon. Do you fancy it? I went, yeah, let's do it. Why do a marathon when you can do an ultra marathon? So it was twice the length or something stupid of the marathon. And it took me all day to run it. And I couldn't walk straight for a week or two afterwards, which was quite embarrassing. But I'd done it. And yeah, I hit the wall. I hit the wall many times over. But the bottom line from all of this is that your body, your brain will tell you to quit when you're physically just at 40% of your capacity. You hit the 40% line and your body just goes, no, I can't do this. You've got 60% left in the tank, 60% left in your tank. And this has been scientifically proven time and time and time again. And I've read many articles on this, scientific journals, articles and research papers, all regarding this very fact, okay? The 40% threshold. You got 60% left. So when you hit that wall, when you're studying and you go, oh, I can't do it, it's because you're trying to cram it. You're trying to cram it in. So it's not a physical, you're going to get a physical symptoms, but your brain is just going, you're going about this the wrong way. Take a break. Approach your studies in chunk fashion, okay? So when I'm studying, if I know I've got a big report to write or I've got to learn something new for whatever I'm involved with, if I'm briefing the Home Secretary and I have to learn about some new sort of topic that's within my sort of field of interest, then I will take myself away to a quiet room. Okay, I might study whether I study at home or whether my office in one of my buildings. I will take myself away and I will have peace and quiet. I'll also have my own study mug, a particular mug that I use for when I'm studying or need to knuckle down and do some work. I'll have a good coffee, good cup of tea, hot chocolate, whatever your favorite tipple is. and I have that ready, and I get into that mindset. I get into that zone that I'm going to be there for study. And then I do it in chunks. So sometimes I'll just do it in 15-minute bursts. But I'll do it, and I'll do involving all my senses. I'll be talking. I'll be reading things out. I'll be doodling and making notes, colored pens, sort of scatter brain diagrams, and I don't do little notepads. I do big A3 notepads and put all my thoughts down and different arrows and different things. And that's how I see things. That's how I learn. Okay. Now, your teachers know this thing called differentiation and how we all learn differently. Some people are visual, somebody auditory, some people like to physically do things. I'm a mixture of all those type of things, really. And so what you got to do when you're studying is to do it and plan it in advance. You've all got calendars on your laptops, on your iPhones, on your Android devices, whatever. Use your calendars and stick to it, okay? Don't be put off by, oh, I've got to watch something on Netflix, or I've got to do something online and everything else. There is no greater reward than having academic success that you've worked for and getting those results. Pushing yourself, getting that white matter going on. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Ask your teachers, ask your lecturers, ask your mum and dad. You know, chances are your mum and dad might not know the latest teaching methods in the teaching fraternity themselves. But ask people if you're finding things difficult. Don't let your pride kick in. Just say, I don't get that. We all learn in different ways. Now, I've got these huge qualifications, and I'll ask something stupid in a meeting. We have daily morning meetings. We call them morning prayers with our drone engineers, and we're going through. And sometimes I'll ask something really noddy, really basic, and they'll go, what? Don't you know that? No, I don't. But who's the fool? If I don't put my hand up because I'm scared of looking stupid, or do I put my hand up and say, what's that? Oh, yeah, okay, I get that now. Thanks for that. But I don't care about if anybody thinks I'm, oh, he doesn't know that. Yeah, so I don't know that. But I know lots more about other things. We all learn different things at different rates. Never be embarrassed to put your hand up. Never be embarrassed to ask a teacher for help and say, look, I'm having difficulty with this. Okay, so you might think you have a personality conflict with a teaching staff member. They're professionals, okay? And if they think there's a bit of an issue there, then fine, they'll put you on to somebody else who can help you accordingly. Okay, at the end of the day, teachers want the best from you. They want you to get the best results. They don't go into the teaching profession for the rock star wages. They go into it because ultimately they can do people who want to help, okay? And they really want to get on. And when their school or college does well, then they prosper from that also, because they want to be the best. They want to be the best teaching methodology, or they want to employ the best teaching methodologies that they can. They want to improve their best practice. They don't want to leave any student behind. Okay, they want to bring everybody on. They want people to improve, and people will get different grades because we're not all great at the same thing. Okay, so it doesn't really matter. All you got to care about is being the best version of you that you can be, because what we have, when I interview people on a monthly basis for new roles, okay? So, and the company with drone defense now, we have every role under the sun. So yeah, we have our engineering and the scientific team doing research. We have a HR department. We have a marketing team, marketing and sales teams. We have fitters, and we have sort of academics then with PhDs. We have professors who come and work for us from other universities doing different types of research. So we have a real eclectic mix of different people. So when I'm interviewing people, I've seen so many CVs. I've had more CVs than I've had hot dinners, I think. I've seen them. And they're in what people fall into. I say 80 to 90% of CVs are boring. They're Control C, Control V. They're cut and paste. And everybody's a good communicator. Everybody's this, that, and the other. I want your story. Everybody wants your story. So when you get in front of somebody for an interview, for one, do your research on that firm. Look at the website, learn about what they're about, put it on a flashcard and learn it. So it's just there. It's on the tip of your tongue all the time. The information's there. You're not having to think about it. You've learned it and digested it. So when I'm asking somebody, where do you see yourself in 5 years in this firm then, if you're coming in now as an apprentice, doing this, that, and the other? And I'll say, what have you failed at in life? And people just don't like admitting to their failings. Whereas me, I'll say, oh yeah, this is what happened to me in secondary school, and I've done this, and I've done that, and I've learned from that, and I've done this. I want your story. I want to hear if you're dyslexic. I want to hear if you've got ADHD. Look, if you've got some sort, look, we're all on the spectrum of some sort of order or disorder, okay? Call it what you may. Couldn't care less. You define normal. There is no normal. We're all different. We all like eclectic, different types of things. So when you come in for a job interview, or you're applying to go for university or college or apprenticeship, whatever you're doing, sell yourself. But sell you. Don't sell a version of yourself that isn't you. Sell you. Sell an ambitious you, the one that wants that job. Tell them the reason why you want that job. Was it because of the book? Was it because of watching something on TV? Was it because of a family member, a friend, a neighbor, whoever that you saw, you spoke to, that went, wow, yeah, I like that job. That sounds really, really cool. I think I could be interested in something like that. You're in the digital era now. Everything's a click of a button away on Google. You can talk to your Siri, you can talk to your Android devices, and you can get Alexa to sort of come up with different things and answer you straight away. There's no excuses then, is there? No excuses. If you want to exist in life, congratulations, just exist in life and accept mediocrity. Or if you want to live, start planning for living now then. Start getting yourself organized, structuring your study time, start looking, start learning new things, start doing different things. This white matter, this growth of white matter, which is 100 times quicker, remember, it's called neuroplasticity. Neuro being the brain, plasticity being malleable, being able to send messages at warp factor, snuff speeds across your brain, okay? Be the best you can be. You've no excuses. And if you make mistakes, fine, admit to them. Lesson identified. What went wrong there? I failed that exam. I failed that test. I did whatever. Fine. I know what I did wrong. I know not to repeat it next time. One last thing before I hand back to John, because I'm conscious of the time getting closer to the hour of me talking, because it can go like that. Look after yourselves as well, okay? Now, I love drinking lots of coffee, and I like partaking in red wine. Not that you guys who are not 18 yet are doing this type of thing, but everything in moderation. But the main key thing is to drink water, okay? Keep yourself hydrated, because if your hydration levels drop, your brain is affected immediately. It's the first thing that goes a little bit foggy. So you keep your hydration levels up, and that's not with fizzy stuff. So your squash-based, your water-based type stuff is what you need. And that is the best form of hydration for your brain. So keep yourself hydrated. So an old forces trick here, I'm going to get a little bit funny, but if your pee's a funny color, you're a bit dehydrated already. So your brain's lagging behind. So drink some glasses of water or glasses of squash, get your brain back up to speed again, okay? Simples. These are the simple tricks from Paul to you to help you get on with the white matter and to be the best version of you can be. So remember, what's Russian for good? Or a show, baby. Yeah, well done. Nice one. Anyway, it's 10 o'clock. So I've been talking for an hour. I'll hand you back to John now. And hopefully you'll see me in a school or college up close and personal in the next few months once this COVID shenanigans all calms down. So thanks very much for listening, and go for it. Thank you.